Alrighty then, greetings everyone, and thanks for coming and joining us for yet another Brony Debates Live. I hope you're all doing great. And joining me today, for the first time, is Shady Oak Ministries. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing fantastic. How are you doing today, Brony?
Oh, I'm doing alright. So for those who don't know, and you can find his links in the description, Shady Oak does Brony Bible studies. He's pretty knowledgeable. In fact, I'd say an expert on the topic that we're going to be talking about today, and I often call him Rabbi, or teacher, or whatever, something like that. Like, Shady, how many times have I come up to you and said, Rabbi, I have a question?
Yeah, happy to be the sensei in your life. I'm glad that there's some biblical input there.
Yep. And then joining us yet again is a friend of the show and sponsor, DJ Skywalker. How are you doing today?
I'm here. I'm off work. Ready to talk.
Good. And making sure you all behave yourselves in the chat as usual is the lovely Princess Heather Blossom with her slice of pizza. How are you doing today, Heather?
You know, I was just thinking about how that factor gives the false impression that I always have pizza when we start this. I wish I had pizza every time we did it.
I'm going to have to pull up...
Why don't you pay me in pizza?
Because I pay you in affection, that's why. And pizza is outside of my budget at the moment.
Damn.
Yeah, I got fired a couple weeks ago, remember?
Oh my god. I was kidding,
Heather,
now you made it real, and now it's awkward and weird.
I will start paying you in pizza as soon as I get that fixed. Anyway, we're here talking about villain redemptions again. Now, this was a topic that Shady Oak wanted to talk about, and since he is also a patron, I'm going to put his suggestions just a little bit higher on my priority list here. But I did a video on villain redemptions back in 2013, and while I think my points in it were valid, that video from a technical standpoint sucks because I was still learning how to edit and record at that time. But that was made right after the fandom as a whole had a big concern about villain reformations as a whole, because we had just had Discord, and then in short order after that we had Sunset Shimmer with Equestria Girls, and we were a lot of people were worried that that was going to become a habit of the show, which it did end up becoming a habit of the show, for better or worse, and that's what we're here to talk about today. It's been 6 years since I made that video, and a lot more has happened since then. So let's start going down the line here. Shady, what do you think would make a good villain reformation?
Well, as you know, everything that I love about the show is either going to point me to or in the direction of the Bible. And when I'm talking about redemption, obviously that's going to be the main theme in both series. And if anything would remind me of the character of Jesus Christ, then I'm obviously going to be the first one to jump on that and make sure I'm not the only one who noticed. When it comes to a good villain redemption, obviously the villain needs to be undeserving, because that's the same place we found ourselves in regarding the gospel. Secondly, it needs to be a serious enough offense and a consistent demonstration of character flaws so that everyone can recognize it as, in fact, evil. And then thirdly, and most importantly, the gracious offer, and grace, the Greek word charis, meaning beautiful, is something that's offered based off of the character's goodness, not necessarily the villain showing some promise or merit. You pointed out in the 2013 video that oftentimes the villains, Discord for example, wasn't as readily repentant as he should have been right away, but it's always good to err, if you're going to be on one side or the other, on the side of, do you really deserve this? Because that's not how God treated us. So if I'm looking at My Little Pony and I'm going to see a worthwhile message that I want to share, it's going to fall on one of those three lines. And I can honestly say there hasn't been a single villain redemption in the show, as you stated earlier, that was for worse as regards to the show, since the only thing I'm looking for to enjoy in the show was seen exactly there.
Okay, well, that'll answer one of my future questions. So let's keep moving on there. DJ, what do you think makes a good villain reformation?
I think the easiest part is just to make it believable.
Okay,
if
so
it's not believable, then there's not really any point to it. Like,
describe believable.
If there's never been any signs that there isn't a chance there could be some good in them, like, I think the most obvious villain to go into that would be the King Sombra, who's never shown any sign of repentance ever. He's happy to do the evil things he does, and it's just evil. He's not someone I would ever believe to be redeemed.
Okay, so we had
show canon.
We had that problem with Sunset Shimmer too, where she just, if anything, that's one of the biggest 180s I've seen in the show.
I give less credence to that, considering she was basically a teenager. I blame that more on hormones.
Okay. That's interesting. And Heather, do you want to weigh in on this at all?
It all depends on the episode for me, because interestingly, I didn't like Starlight's redemption. Obviously, I've made that very clear for a long time now. I didn't like hers, discords. For some reason, like, it happened really fast, but I was able to accept discords because it felt much more genuine than Starlight's. Starlight, like, well, maybe it's just because I don't like her as a character. I feel like that she was one that really should have been redeemed. Like, she's the one that could have found things and turned a new leaf. She's obviously the one that I thought was more capable of it, but I didn't like the execution of it. So it's all execution to me.
Okay, so it sounds like you're roughly in the same camp as DJ there, but do you have any differences as to what makes what you think makes a villain redemption believable in your mind?
Nothing immediately comes to mind.
Alrighty then. So, in that case, I'm gonna move on to the next part of the topic here, and I'm gonna turn to DJ because Shady already answered this question. Is which of the villain redemptions do you believe didn't work? Aside from, you already talked about Sombra, but was there any that like meets the criteria of having been redeemed that you just watched and said, no, that's not right?
Well, at first, Starlight, sadly. As much as I love her character, I didn't feel her redemption was done very well, but I feel that in the aftermath, it's kind of fixed itself.
Okay, so can you go further in depth on that?
Well, at first, we just didn't... The reasoning behind Starlight, I think, is what clouds a lot of her redemption. Her whole backstory just... It's really weak compared to what she's done. But over the years, she's kind of made herself her own character beyond that stuff.
So it sounds like I just said Heather's in the same camp as you, but going right back, it sounds like you and Heather agree with each other there that the execution was flawed because you don't believe Starlight's actions and how she became a villain in the first place match up with her backstory. Like, you believe she reacted disproportionately. Is that about right?
Yeah, it didn't really fit.
Okay, so, I mean, so my question then is, have you yourself never overreacted to something?
Several times. I think we all have at least once in our life.
Yeah, and if anything, most of my humor in my other videos are based on overreaction, but I think that happens a lot in life. And sometimes, yeah, it does get to that level where people fly off the handle and make real villains out of themselves and can ruin several people's lives just because they felt like they were wronged or abandoned, a thing like that. in the past or something like that. How many times have you met a person that says, I'm like this because X person treated me this way? That's my counterpoint there. So I never understood why Starlight Glimmer, with her forgiveness, gets that kind of hate. What do you have to say to that?
Could you repeat that? You were kind of breaking up on my end a little bit.
Okay, I'm sorry. My question was, how many times have we met somebody that is like Starlight Glimmer in a way of, because I was treated like this, or because I have abandonment issues, then that's why I feel justified in doing wrong by everybody else, or acting selfishly by everybody else. Because of that, Starlight Glimmer seems like one of the more realistic redemptions in my eyes. That she was just misguided and needed to be set on the right path. And so that's my rebuttal to that. I was saying I don't understand how people can see that and know people who are like Starlight Glimmer and don't understand and give her the hate that she gets. So what do you have to say in response to that?
Well, I don't think I actually have met anyone that's ever had anything similar to what Starlight's been through.
Oh man, I could list. Now none of these are people that
your issues.
But I know. Yeah, none of these are people that you would know. And the only name that I could, the only top hat wearing name I could pull up, he would tell you similar things like that, but he was he was lying. So these are the people that I could name are not people that you would know. So that probably does not hold water with you, but I can promise you people get like that. Shady, do you want to weigh in on this at all?
Well, I think that both Heather and DJ, you put forward an idea that these aren't redemptions, that the change was just too quick. But as they always say, truth is stranger than fiction, and there's no better display of proof or thing real than history. When I look at Starlight, and especially for Sunset Shimmer, who, full honesty here, is my waifu when it comes to the show, I call her the Paul the Apostle pony, because literally her redemption was mirrored by his own. And if you read the book of Acts, this is essentially give a whole sermon here, but you'd be happy to look at the Element of Forgiveness video that I did on that topic. When Paul the Apostle, who was originally Saul the Pharisee, by the way, understood from his culture, from his upbringing, from his youth, what the truth was, what the right thing to do by him was, and that was, of course, traditional Judaism, then anything that stood in the way of that was objectively wrong. He was going to do what was right by him, so help him God. But then when he was on his way to, he was so intense a personality that he would even go out of his way to kill people who were on the wrong side of history as he saw it. He was only justified in doing that because he thought that God was on his side. Then he encountered God and realized, oh, I'm not. And he had a choice. He could have either have continued to say, no, I want to do what I think is right, or I'm going to fall in line with reality. Now, what happened with Sunset Shimmer and Starlight Glimmer both, whether it was with the Time Scroll or with the school grounds, having all power stripped of them, Paul the Apostle was struck blind. And the opportunity for forgiveness that neither of them deserved, Paul, Sunset, or Starlight, they were shown that kind of grace. And whether it was with Annis and healing Paul's blindness, that guy knew he was coming to the city to kill him, not one day before. But upon a direct encounter with God, he realized, oh, you know what? I care more about truth than I do about, quote unquote, being right. Because if I'm on the side of truth, I'll also be right. But then on the other hand, his redemption started and ended in the same place that Starlight and Sunset did. They were shown reality. They realized, oh, this power was only destroying and hurting people. It wasn't causing me or anyone else to benefit. Oh, this time scroll is only going to lead to a future that's definitely going to be some inspiration for some awesome war fan fiction, but nonetheless, not the kind of future that we want. and they changed accordingly in the face of reality. And
All
so
right.
since we have a decided historical example of someone who literally changed overnight when in the face of reality, I think there was a legitimate change and redemption there.
So,
what would you guys say?
Okay, so I disagree with you just a little bit here. Although we're on the same team as far as Sunset goes, I'm I don't see her motivations in the same way that you do, and I find it funny. I wonder, on a side note here, I wonder if it's a good thing or a bad thing that Past Analysis isn't here tonight, because he also really likes Starlight, or not Starlight, Sunset Shimmer that much. God, he would punch me if he just heard me say that he likes Starlight Glimmer. Anyway.
No, by all means, I'll happily talk to him. I love people that disagree.
So, no. He loves Sunset Shimmer, in much in the same way you do. So, with Sunset, I didn't see somebody who thought they were doing right. She knew darn well that what she was doing was wrong, but she just didn't care. What she did care about was the selfish belief that she deserved the power to control Equestria, control the high school, control whatever she wanted to. And then she got the crap kicked out of her and realized, as unfortunately a lot of people do when they're acting like that, and they usually just have to get the crap kicked out of them once or twice, to realize, I'm not getting what I want like this, and I'm suffering these consequences because of what I'm doing, so maybe I should try to learn from it. Now,
so reality catches up to them, you'd say?
Yeah, so reality, not so much that she thought she was doing the right thing, but yeah, sociopathy has its consequences. And sometimes getting rainbow lasered into a gosh darn crater just might be one of them. Discord was so that was very much a 180 for her, and she, when she realized what had gone wrong, she was really scared. At least that's what I saw, because she, as she said herself, as she's getting pulled out of that crater, I don't know how to do anything else. So how, where am I supposed to go? This has got to be the end for me. And that's
my past is not today. Ambition is what I believed. It was the only way to set me free when I was alone and found myself. You know how it goes.
Yeah, I know how it goes. Gosh darn, you're talkative. So So from there, she gave herself the opportunity to learn, which then led into, basically the entirety of Rainbow Rocks. But that's a different story.
I could go off on that too.
Yeah, and Discord was another really quick one, and he happened short ways before there, and he also had some very selfish motivations. He just wanted to mess around and not be a statue. And he was very good at manipulating Fluttershy early on, but the problem is that it backfired, is that he got I guess the word would be poisoned by love, and friendship and things like that. So
yeah, it's better to err on the side of grace than on the side of hostility.
Right. So he, when he realized he was going to lose that's when he had to double back. And so all of his subsequent appearances after that, up until very recently, he's always had to learn something, because it was still him pushing and seeing how much he could test and get away with without getting some sort of horrible consequence to it. So I've talked a lot here about how I saw Sunset Shimmer's motivations and Discord's motivations, but why I liked them so much as a redemption was because they were at least honest about wanting to try to learn and get better and things like that. And while Sunset's transformation was a lot quicker, it was still believable to me, and I still encourage people to try to be like that, because holding on to that hate is not good for you. But I've talked for too long myself. DJ, do you have anything to say to anything about Sunset or Discord?
I really have no issues with Sunset or Discord's redemptions at all. They made them believable when they happened, and that's what mattered at the time. But I think maybe I misspoke a little bit when I brought up Starlight. I was referring to at the time when it first aired that the redemption seemed off. Nowadays, with all that we know about Starlight, it makes more sense.
Right. So
it's just back then it felt off by what they had given in her premiere episode and that episode. But everything after it has made it a lot more believable.
Okay, so it was the subsequent building on
Yes.
that gave her that made it more believable for you.
Mm-hmm. It was just at that time there wasn't a lot to it.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. I would say that the slaps on the wrist she got subsequently were a little too light for what she did. Like, what was that episode where she took over everybody's mind and was making them do her chores for her or something like that?
That was every little thing she does?
Every little thing she does, yeah. I was getting the title mixed up with something else, and I didn't want to say the wrong title and sound like an idiot. That was some serious mind control, dark magic nonsense, and it should have been a lot more than just getting yelled at. I don't know exactly what they would have done, but I do worry that when you become too forgiving of people like that, then they can develop it into a habit. So that'll lead us into like the bad parts of what a villain redemption can be. Let me go over to Shady here. Shady, with all that being said, how do you know where to draw the line?
Well, I think, once again, if we're going to do what is right, we have to first clarify what right is. If I consider myself sitting down in a chair, I also have an idea of what is up. And so if I'm becoming more good, I need to first clarify what that good is. And I've read plenty of fan fictions regarding, like, Celestia's mom Aether is the goddess of Equestria or something. Whatever you want to call it, it's the absolute standard of what is right and what is good. And so if I'm going to at least acknowledge I'm moving towards a point, I have a decided destination, and that destination is good, then I am, of course, going to first recognize I'm not there yet. I'm still going to mess up, especially in the ways that I used to. But the second thing, and I think what's even more crucial, not just for the forgive-e, but the forgiver, is to understand this is much for our benefit as for theirs. Yourself mentioned that holding on to that hate isn't good for you, but understand it takes two to tango in any restored relationship. If I'm going to forgive like I've been forgiven, that's the Christian perspective. God loved me, according to Romans 5:6-8. God loved me when I was still the raging she-demon, the time-breaking lunatic, or the Draconequus who had no care even for Fluttershy. If we want to get into this, we can even say, God loved me when I was Cozy Glow, Chrysalis, Sombra, and Gorthar combined. So if that's the basis, then I need to have at least the... You know what? If I was in that, I want some mercy too, which Starlight was shown in everything she does is magic. Likewise, when she recognized what she was doing was wrong, that, of course, was a lot quicker a cleanup than it would have been if she was still a villain. And of course I'm going to have the grace to be able to say, you know what, she's still growing, she's still going to get there. But I'd also say, the punishment does still need to suffer, that whole sort of purgatory like nonsense, so I still have to pay for my sins. That, once again, is something that I don't see in the show nor in the Bible, because while yes, Paul the Apostle, for instance, he did live a very grueling life, it wasn't because of punishment for the things that he'd done. It was just part and parcel of his territory. And to him who much is given, much is required. Starlight Glimmer was in charge of a lot of people. She was entrusted with a lot of magical power. And as we've seen on several fan videos, she could, if she wanted to, out-trump all of the main six and everything with those big staring eyes. Have you seen those videos?
Yep.
Where she just watches them and then just outdoes them without breaking eye contact. But then there's that other responsibility of saying, you know what? I could mess this up. And if I mess things up in a higher office of power, say if I'm in charge of a church and I morally fall, that's going to be much bigger consequences-wise than if I fall and I'm just a member of a church, or if I'm just, the janitor of a school or I'm the principal of a school. Starlight Glimmer was the head counselor of the School of Friendship, so obviously her level of power also produced a level of consequence. But the thing that I've been learning, not just watching the show, but doing the comparative research in Scripture, is that there really is no difference between the two. It's, in God's eyes, just a mess-up. And if we don't serve a God of mercy, we're all toast anyway. So whether it's in big issues or small, the goal isn't where we are today, it's where we're headed tomorrow. It's important to know that God loves us as we are today, but far too much to let us stay that way. The things that we were doing were destroying us, and that's true as much for Starlight as well as for any of the other villains or even the historical examples in the Bible. But the reason why we want to be more good is because not just our benefit, but because it points us to something much better, a life worth living.
Okay. So, but that didn't really answer the question, though. The question was, how do we know, whether it's in the show or whether it's in life, that this person is going too far, that they can't be worked with? So that was that. But what do you think, DJ?
I kind of have two answers.
Okay, let's hear it.
In one light, I don't think anyone is beyond redemption. But in another, there is a thing as having too many chances. Mm-hmm. Where even if they accept it but refuse to change their ways, it's not... I don't want to use the word right because it doesn't feel right, but I can't think of the right word for it.
Right. Yeah, so eventually it comes to a point where you realize someone isn't really trying, and you don't want that kind of person in your life, because that's not them trying to. That's not really them asking for forgiveness. It's them asking for permission to be abusive, is what it really just comes down to. So that leads me into the next question here. We've got a few villains so far that have yet to be redeemed. We've got Grogar, we've got Chrysalis, we've got the Flim Flam brothers, we've got Cozy Glow, and we got Erick. So of these, who do we think is beyond it at the moment? Let's start with Heather on this one. Do you have any thoughts on that? Who would get redeemed right now and you would just say no?
Can you repeat it? You're just
which villain is beyond forgiveness?
Huh. Gee.
I suppose there's also Sombra and the Dazzlings.
I'll pretend I understood that.
Also including the Dazzlings and so forth. And Prince Blueblood, don't forget him.
I'm going to Equestria Girls. Then I'd probably say Principal Cinch.
Principal Cinch? Why Principal Cinch?
She's a very vindictive type of woman. She knows what she's doing, and she doesn't really care about the consequence. Even when everything went down, she didn't think about the error of her ways. So
I don't think she's beyond it. I think she's the type that's got to lose everything. So, which, might be hard to do in her old age. She definitely wouldn't ever bounce back from that, especially to the loss of her reputation. But if she ever got to a point where she realized that the reputation was not worth it, I think she would very much be a lot like an older Sunset Shimmer.
Not too sure about that, but yeah, I don't think we'll ever find out.
No, we most certainly won't. What do you think, DJ?
Who's beyond redemption?
Who is beyond redemption?
Right now, the only one I see as possibly being beyond it is maybe Grogar.
Yeah, why Grogar?
That's kind of a hard maybe because, like I said, any of the characters can be redeemed. I don't think there's any that are truly beyond it. But to be given a choice, I would say Grogar because he's had millennia upon millennia upon millennia think about what's happened to him, and it's only made him more vindictive.
Okay, so yeah, he's definitely not the type of person to change his ways.
He's been in the longest time out ever, and he's only come out worse.
Okay. And this is probably a stupid question, but what do you think, Shady?
Well, again, I think all four of them are the perfect illustration of what evil is, not just because they've been given chances, as DJ said, but they walked away from them. The only sin that God can't forgive in the Bible is refusing to be forgiven. Starlight offered a hand to Chrysalis. She said no. Opportunity for redemption was given to Cozy Glow. She said no. The opportunity, well, I guess Sombra and the others wouldn't have an opportunity for that. Erick was just thrown into prison because reasons, but then again, he was given an opportunity by Scorpion, and he said no. The only thing God can't forgive is the liberty he's given us to accept or reject forgiveness. And so the foundation of evil itself is just an unwillingness to want it. And again, I think we haven't seen all of Grogar's story yet. I'll leave that open. But as far as Chrysalis, Cozy Glow, and Erick, I think, well, as well as Sombra, but he kind of died in his sins, so to speak. They type F to pay respects, everybody. That, of course, will be the ones I'd say are beyond redemption, not necessarily the ones that can't be redeemed but won't.
All right, sounds good. I would say I'm actually going to turn back the clock a little bit here, because there was one villain redemption that I saw that I was just absolutely like, no, what are you doing? And that was Juniper Montage. Actually, no, two. Juniper Montage and Gloriosa Daisy, where they had this excuse that it seemed like because they were under the influence of magic, that of course made it okay to do exactly what they always wanted to do. And that I didn't understand why they were forgiven for that. It was one thing with Starlight Glimmer, with Sunset, with Discord, with Diamond Tiara, that with Nightmare Moon, it was one thing that they realized the error of their ways, but or were otherwise misguided or something like that. These, the Gloriosa Daisy and Juniper Montage from the Equestria Girls, they got magic, and they just went off and did what they always wanted to do, which was get revenge, which was take control of the camp or things like that. There was never any sort of coming to moment like that. They just got overpowered and had that magic, I guess for lack of a better term, exorcised from them, and were suddenly better. I didn't understand that, and I didn't think it was a very good show that you can blame your actions on an outside force. What do you guys think about that? We'll start with Shady for this one.
Well, I think power isn't necessarily evil, but it does give you the means to accomplish what you want, and that can either show your character or it can really show it. When it came to the Legends of Everfree, I wouldn't necessarily blame the magic, because we also saw, and they made it clear in the movie, that the main six also used magic, but it didn't corrupt them. It just showed them who they were. On the other hand, you wouldn't look at Melody and say that she was necessarily evil at face value. But on the other hand, when you saw her with more power, you got to see more of her. So it wasn't necessarily a showcase of her, it was just less of an opportunity to act on it. You saw that when they wanted to close down the camp, she became angry, vindictive, hostile, to use our terms. And so if we're going to make conclusions on anybody, it's obviously going to be seen most clearly when they're given power, but not necessarily because they have power. We saw that with the main six as well. I thought the episode was fine.
And you didn't have any problems with Gloriosa or Juniper Montage being redeemed?
I mean, apart from being villains, no.
All right. What do you think about that? About all that, DJ?
Well, I'd like to answer that by asking you a question by thinking of it in a different way. How would your feelings change if you changed the word magic to drugs or alcohol?
I was waiting for that to happen. It wouldn't change my answer at all.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. It's because having an addiction or having a mental illness of some kind does not change your conscience.
People you still have a choice.
Yeah, people by and large know what's right and wrong, and they know why it's right and wrong. And I've known too many people that had addictions and had various mental illnesses that have recognized the problems that they were causing and the danger that they were to unto themselves and other people, and went and sought the necessary help. For anybody for the rest of my life to tell me to blame anything that they do on an external force, I'm not gonna buy it. And it's that's what I think about that.
And again, let's just make sure the audience heard that, because I think it's important. You've had too much of experience in your own life to say that people were just controlled by a substance because they made choices knowing consequences, and when they saw the consequences.
Yeah, because I have friends. I have friends with really bad depression that know that they don't want to have a negative experience on the lives of the people that they care about, and they recognize externally that people care about them, so they choose to seek help for their depression, if that's therapy, if that's medication, if whatever that, if it's a change of circumstances. And they seek that out, and they follow through upon that on their own power. I have a lot of friends like that, but then you turn the view onto someone like my older brother, who for the last 20 years has, no, it's been a lot longer than that, for longer than I can remember, has just terrorized my family, and it's always he's got some kind of mental illness. Okay, well, he's got some kind of mental illness that nobody's ever been able to diagnose. At a certain point, somebody's just evil, and I stopped buying the excuse. So that's I've seen both sides of it, and I feel like I, at the very least, have a decent view of how to differentiate somebody who can be helped and somebody who doesn't want to be helped.
Exactly.
But do those two characters come off as those that don't want to be helped, when at the time when the help is being offered, they are on these magic, or you could see it as an allegory for an addicting substance that could be clouding their mind?
They treated it more like a demon exorcism, which was in my idea is inconsistent with the rest of the theme of the show, where when the magic entered them, they just went crazy, and it amplified what they already wanted. If they had treated it
like
more
Sunset
like
Shimmer.
Yeah, if they had treated it more like Sunset Shimmer, and especially with Juniper Montage, like that one was just, I would just straight up say horribly written. Because as soon as Starlight started talking to her after that lame gosh darn fight scene in the mall, her script just flipped, and it was like somebody else had started writing it entirely without checking before to see what had already been written. She wasn't talking about getting revenge because they ruined her chance at working in the movie business or something like that anymore. She was talking about friendship and things like that, and that's not. I just straight didn't buy it, because that's not what somebody who's going through that is thinking about. You can't counter that with friendship. You gotta, or at least there's got to be a lot more of a transition for me to see it as believable. So those are my thoughts there. What do you think about that, DJ?
I didn't see it the way you did, honestly.
Okay, how did you see it?
Well, with Juniper, it didn't work with the girls before because Juniper had that hatred towards them. But then Starlight came in, a new player, a newcomer who she'd never met, and just offered her that hand, and she took it.
Okay,
When
so
you're
it wasn't that Sunset.
perspective.
Okay, so it wasn't that Sunset or Twilight or one of them did it. It was because it wasn't one of the main 7 that it was able to work for Juniper. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, what was that?
Because it didn't work for Juniper, that it did work for Sunset. You don't see some inconsistency there.
I see that it didn't work because not everything will work the same way for each person.
What I thought I heard was it just had to be somebody that wasn't the main 7 talking to Juniper Lee specifically, which I suppose can make sense because the source of information can certainly have a lot of impact on whether or not you believe it. You know, say if somebody that you know to be a liar or a troll comes up to you and gives you a warning and of something or tries to give you a lecture, it may be the best advice you've ever gotten, but because they've caused you some kind of grief before in the past, you're going to be a lot less likely to believe them. But like if someone you trust came up and did it, so that's what you're saying, DJ?
Yeah, I kind of broke up there at the end.
I said it just had to be somebody that wasn't the main 7, so that Juniper could listen to what was being said without the veil of hatred towards that person. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. That, you know what?
And
that,
someone who also was able to kind of connect with what she was feeling.
You know what? That makes sense. I'm going to concede to that. Good job. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that while we're on it?
Well, I've actually been in that situation, and I was the one who was actually the jerk in that scenario. It wasn't necessarily because I was deliberately trying to be that guy. It was because I just had too much experience, or rather, I was making too many assumptions about the person in charge. I was in ROTC, and this guy that I had no love for whatsoever, at the time at least, he was put in charge to prep us for our big rally, and I just undercut him every time he'd tell us to do an exercise. I said, why weren't you doing this? Why weren't you doing because necessarily he was doing anything wrong, or even necessarily that I saw something wrong. It was just him. I had chosen to make him I saw faults. And I approached him later on in life and just apologized for being the immature little high schooler that I was. But it ultimately just comes down to, look, there are people who are just divisive. And even the Bible says not to be patient with them. It just says avoid them, because they're not going to change unless God does a miracle.
So is it coming to the concept of if somebody who smokes 3 packs a day tells you not to smoke, are you going to believe them? Or are you going to believe it's good advice, or are you going to be less likely to believe them because they're a hypocrite?
Well, that depends on the listener more than the speaker. If a liar, a person known for telling lies, tells the truth, it doesn't change the truth. But on the other hand, that's the reason I don't smoke. My grandfather, who smoked 3 packs a day, told me not to smoke, and I listened.
Well, that was just a metaphor, though.
Yeah.
So, that is an interesting thing that really comes down to the individual, and I have that fight with myself all the time, and it's because I know the truth doesn't change regardless of whether or not we believe it, but the source of the truth can make it difficult to know whether or not something is the truth. That's certainly a problem that we have. And with that, I would like to move into the audience interacting segment. Heather, how's the chat been doing these last 45 minutes?
I've got a few questions. You ready for them? You had like a minute left before we had to go into this.
I'm not worried about that. It just gives us an extra minute to play with the audience.
Well, all right, fine. Throw off my whole time frame. Sure, why not?
Forget you and your time frame, Heather. We're on Brony time right now.
I heard your insult. Anyways, I got a few questions ready for you. And Ariel Warner asks, "Hey Brony, do you still know all the lyrics to Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious?"
I do, but I'm not
Don't
going to
sing
sing
it
it
right
now.
now. Let's
Yeah,
move on.
no, we're on the same page there, Heather. What's the next one?
Alexander, what about Capper?
What about Capper? So Capper,
He wasn't a villain.
he was a dirty, rotten liar for a little bit there, and then he felt guilt and went out of his way to do the right thing. What do you think about Capper there, Shady?
I think he was given the opportunity to see a better option, and once he had seen it, he took it. I talk about this in my study on the My Little Pony movie.
Nice. Yep. So everybody, make sure to go watch his stuff if you got time for that. Some of your older works though are really good. Go really in depth, and he's got some pretty long videos on that. Heather.
Yeah,
Heather,
I learned better.
Stupid question. What do you think about Capper?
Who did you ask?
I said you, Heather. What did you think about Capper?
I think a lot of things. I really enjoyed him. He didn't really spend a lot of time as a bad guy for me to be like, oh, he's a bad man. He's more of a, I don't want to say delinquent because I don't have really a age for him. He's a street cat. He's a stray. He's a tramp. And he's just doing what he has to get by. But as soon as he's shown some genuine kindness, he really quickly turns around.
Yep. He reminds me of a lot of kids that I used to work with, where you could tell that deep down they were good kids. They just needed a better environment. You know what I mean? It was just an unfortunate circumstance. All right. So what's the next question?
Next question is Neo Sphinx asks, what about consequences for forgiveness?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, sometimes you're going to get forgiven and you're going to forgive the wrong person and it's going to come back to bite you.
Discord.
I've done that a few times. There's Discord. There's, the learning curve that Starlight has had. Shady, what do you think about that? How many times have you forgiven the wrong person?
Well, I don't have to speak my own experience. I can look at the greatest example. What did it cost God to forgive people who, for the most part, wouldn't even receive it? He had to endure the most brutal death imaginable, but for some reason, he found you and me worth it.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing there, but I think what Neon's question was more so like, what do you do in that situation, and should you let it change your perspective? So I think, not to undermine you here, but I think your personal experience would be a little bit more applicable in the context of that question.
Well, I won't get too much into it because it gets really, really personal after a while, but you've talked about your brother. I can discuss an anonymous member of my extended family.
Mm-hmm.
They had done horrible, horrible things to me, and there was a sitter. Knowing this, my folks told me to apologize to him for being disrespectful. Now, obviously, having to look that kind of person in the face and say, I am sorry for disrespecting you after all that you've done for me. But it was really a question of, am I going to do the right thing, or am I just going to add another this never-ending cycle of pain? If you're going to do the right thing, don't go halfway. Again, the ultimate example of it didn't either, and it cost him everything.
Exactly. And I've been there a few times. You try to work with somebody, and eventually you just got to learn how to spot the difference between somebody who needs help and can be helped versus somebody who doesn't want to be helped. Because I've there have been times where I've forgiven friends and they've learned not to do certain things, but I was my older brother. I was his biggest cheerleader or advocate, I would say, for most of my life, and that got me with a knife against my throat. And we all remember that character that used to be in a couple of my videos, Buck Wild. I forgave him every time he did something. Every time I tried to help him, it would literally cost me thousands of dollars and months of my life, and I did that over and over again before I realized that was never gonna change. So, I had to drop him too. Eventually, I don't know. You got to be prepared and at peace for things like that to happen. But at the same time, when it does happen, just do your best to recover from it and learn from it. DJ, what do you think? What happens when you forgive the wrong person? Consequences of forgiving someone.
In the end, it's just going to get people hurt.
Okay, so is it? Do you like have a number of strikes policy or something like that, or do you just drop people if they look like they're going to be trouble?
I believe in second chances. I believe there are some instances where a third chance can be given, but the more and more someone shows that they won't change, there's not much you can do.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty then. Heather, what's the next question?
The next question is, and a lot of people have been going off about what everyone thinks about Wallflower's redemption, if it was believable or not.
I had no problem with Wallflower's redemption. I thought she was pretty similar to Starlight Glimmer, with a little bit more of you caused your own problem there, sister. But once she realized she had to kind of look inward for the solution to these problems, she was definitely showed off her potential, I would say. DJ, what do you think?
I think Wallflower's redemption, while it felt a little sudden, she recognized that she was wrong and even said that there was no real excuse behind it and apologized and was ready to make up for it.
All right, enough chit-chat. Light her up, ladies!
Well, she wasn't blasted herself this time.
Yeah, that's true. Shady, what do you think about...
She wasn't even rainbow-powered.
Yeah, but she did have... She basically had the magic equivalent of a gun. Shady, what do you think about Wallflower?
Well, she had definitely a lot of character development given the amount of time she had on screen, but once again, it ultimately just showed where she ended up that I think is worth judging her, not necessarily the abuse of the memory stones. She wanted to form relationships but didn't know how, and so when she had the opportunity to see a right thing, I'd say she's almost maybe a longer term character establishment, but I'd compare her more to Capper than a villain.
Interesting. All right, Heather, do you want to weigh in on this, or do we go to the next question?
I won't weigh in much. Wallflower sucked. Moving on. Destroyer asked, hey, is Lightning Dust still a villain?
Yeah, I wouldn't... Lightning Dust is still a villain. She definitely didn't learn anything for any of her screen time, and probably won't learn anything, even if by chance she gets another appearance. What do you think, DJ?
To quote what I said last time I was here, she's stupid.
She's stupid. Yeah, she's kind of stupid. Very talented, wasted talent. What do you think, Shady?
There's always going to be bullies. There's always going to be rivals. I think there is a chance for her, but given there's only, 7, 8 more episodes left in the season, I think we'll just let her be her.
Alrighty then. Heather, what do you think about Lightning Dust?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing, but hey, for being stupid yet talented, she found her niche. Being a washout, that seems to be going pretty well for her.
Yep. I mean, aside from getting blasted in space, literal Team Rocket there, but okay.
I'm sure she's fine.
Yeah.
Found success in
Hey,
failure.
even Team Rocket got a redemption arc in Pokemon 2000.
Well, shoot, I don't know about that. All right, what's the next question?
Toad256 asks, hey Brony, what about Garble?
Garble, as we just recently found out, never was a villain. He was just a bully, and doing it trying to impress his friends, which does not seem too far beyond the realm of possibility for me. Now, it's in fact, I find Garble's thing very believable. It was definitely unexpected. I didn't expect him to. I mean, I still don't like it. I still don't like his sensitive side. He's got the wrong kind of sensitive side. Like, there's one thing about being a jerk with a sensitive side that just likes rabbits or something like that. And there's another thing where you're a jerk to cover up the fact that you do hipster poetry. So
Just leave me with questions.
yeah. Well,
Have you guys seen A Christmas Story?
A Christmas Story? Is that
there's a...
I Want a Red
with,
Ryder BB gun?
Yeah, remember, there's three kinds of people in the world. There's the bullies, there's the toadies, and then there's the mindless rabble of victims. Garble wasn't anything more than a toady.
He was doing a good job at being a bully, though. I mean, shoot, it looked like he was, by and large, the ringleader of his friends there.
Well, yeah, but where did that go when the Phoenix parents showed up?
I hate that.
Got him stuck in a tree. That's what got him and his stupid friend stuck in a tree. What do you think, Heather? What about Garble?
I don't really think of him very often.
Throwaway character. Throwaway character. I'm cool with that. Now, what's the next question?
Destroyer asked, hey Brony, and for the rest, what did happen with the Alicorn amulet? It was only in one episode, and then poof, it's gone.
It's Zecora's doorstop now.
It's in zebra hooves now.
Alrighty then. Next question.
Nathan Horetta asked, hey Brony, how would you feel about the mirror pool returning in the finale?
I think that would be really cool. I would like to go into the mirror pool so that I can have half of me working a normal job and half of me making videos.
Avengers assemble.
Yeah, except the Avengers are all just clones of me.
Bronies assemble.
Yeah.
I mean, the last episode, it's like hundreds of clones of all the main six, and then they take on Gorthar's army.
That'd be funny. I could just imagine Rarity, like, coming onto the scene and looking down at Grogar and going, you took everything from me, and Grogar's like, I don't even know you. Alrighty then, next question.
Quiet Storm asked, who is the most likely to be redeemed out of the team of evil?
Cozy Glow. That's what I think.
What?
Is that racist?
No. At least I don't think it is. Yeah, I think she's a little more misguided. I think she's got the Starlight Glimmer Sunset Shimmer problem. She's somewhere in between there. Tarek, Grogar, Chrysalis seem pretty set in their ways. Plus, they've done a lot more evil than and a lot more damage. Probably each of them probably have a body count, and I don't want that walking around. What do you guys think?
I think everyone but Grogar has a chance.
I agree.
All right. Next question.
Switch asked, in the last episode, would you like to see Tyrek's brother? I was just thinking about that.
I think that's how he's going to be redeemed.
Scorpion?
Yeah, I think Scorpion will come back. I think Chrysalis will understand her role as a mother is more important than as a ruler. And I think that Cozy Glow might meet her parents or whatever is the backstory to her bitterness and wanting to turn to Tyrek.
I would laugh so hard if Diamond TR ended up being the one that reforms Cozy Glow. Because at this point, I think she's the only one who could. You know what I mean? Diamond TR just coming up being like, listen, I was the exact same way. but you're wrong.
You didn't open a black hole at the bottom of the school.
Well, because she didn't have the desire or know-how. I think Diamond Tiara could.
I think you give her too much credit.
Sure. You're probably right. Or maybe I'm just, rooting for young characters here. Given the couple of episodes of Brony Debates Live ago that I championed Cozy Glow as the best villain, I'm starting to see a little bit of bias in myself. Do we have any more questions?
Well, we're out of time, but if you want to do 2 more.
If they're quick questions, sure.
Brony, why do you see Flim and Flam as villain?
Because every time they're on screen, all they do is lie and cheat people out of their money, and they show absolutely zero remorse about that kind of thing. I'm pretty sure Dante's Inferno had a special, like a ring completely dedicated to people like that. Not that Dante's Inferno is canon, but whatever. Next question.
How do you feel about Celestia retiring?
I don't like it. I don't like that whole subplot one bit. There should have been a lot more transition from a storytelling aspect. That's all I have to really say about that. All right. And we are out of time. We're a little bit over time here, by about 2 minutes, but that's quite all right. I don't mind being on the microphone a little bit longer. What did you guys think of tonight? Did you have fun?
I had fun.
Good. Any closing statements? We'll start with Shady. Shady.
Start with whom?
Yeah, Shady, do you want to say anything to close out the stream for us?
No, it's just an honor to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And if anyone has any questions on what was said or hasn't been said about the Bible or any other details, feel free to message me at our YouTube channel, Shady Oak Ministries.
All right. Well, YouTube's getting rid of the messaging shortly here. So any other way we can get a hold of you?
I have titled The Foil Guy. It's all one word. There I don't do the My Little Pony studies, but it's still the same me. So if you have questions there as well, just look for the same symbol as my cutie mark, and that'll be your little Easter egg hunt. But it's all one word, The Foil Guy. And there I can either answer your Bible questions or I can do foil requests of anything you want to see made. I am also the junior high pastor of Calvary Christian Fellowship of Tucson, and I do a Bible question and answer radio program every day, including today. We're going to start in about an hour. So on Facebook, Calvary Christian Fellowship of Tucson, there you can find me as well.
All right, Christian or not, I need everybody to go check out Shady Oak's stuff and subscribe to him. DJ, you have any closing thoughts for us tonight?
Not really. Just again.
All right.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. So thank you both for coming on. Heather, do you have anything you want to say?
Not much.
All right. Thanks for moderating, Heather.
Pizza.
And thank you, everyone, for coming to join us. Thank you especially to my patrons who make this happen. The $10 and up tiers, especially. These being Autoknight, Sod and Girder, Senko, Jennan Kellogg, Kyle Christensen, DJ Skywalker, our friend right here, Mike's Geek World, and the Equestrian City Heroverse series. If you'd like to be on these podcasts, I'd love to have you. You just got to be $1 or more a month patron supporter. And if you want to suggest topics, you can do so by hitting me up on Twitter, by hitting me up on Tumblr, or by hitting me up on email at bronydebates@gmail.com. I'm so happy you all came out to watch the stream, and I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you on Saturday. Or no, wait, no, Heather's stream is not going on this Saturday, but we will see you next Friday for Friday Night Fights. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye-bye.